So, good morning and welcome to Political No Brainer, the podcast where we move past winner takes all politics and into real conversation. And I'm today this morning I have the pleasure of speaking with Doug Kaplan, who is Kaplan Strategies, right? And Doug, you work with a lot of candidates. You've been working with politics for years. I've actually been in your office. I've talked to you about working with you on a potential campaign or two. I was thinking about running for the House and the U.S. House, and it seemed like a giant task for a first election cycle, for a first election bid. So, and you gave me some great advice, but ultimately I decided not to go through with it. But I'm always thinking about running. I don't know about running again, but doing this podcast, I'm always talking to candidates, and there's a lot of good candidates out there. But we are in a rut in today's world of winner takes all politics and red versus blue. How do jump in, Doug? Tell me what you think. How do we get past some of that?
Right now, our country's at a 50-50 divide. The country's always been divided since John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. I think it's just amplified now because of social media. So it's much more in your face.
And in young people's face, which is really, I think, a good thing. Young people are very involved, are very informed and are very opinionated. And we have a lot going on. Like we have a president with whether you agree with him or not, and I often say I don't often agree with him, but whether you agree with him or not, he's doing more of what he said he's going to do than any other president. So I always use the example of the Department of Education, which seems to be coming up every day. Ronald Reagan said he was going to close the Department of Education. He did not. During his 8 years as a president, the Department of Education grew in size and scope. These are the types of things that Donald Trump said he's going to do. It comes as no surprise then, or it should come as no surprise then that he's doing it. So, um, how does when you're a lot of time often new candidates come to you, what is your feel, what is your vibe, what do new candidates want to accomplish, what are they looking to do entering into the business of politics?
I mean, the biggest problem a new candidate has is fundraising, right? Is just the amount of money is just ridiculous that you need in politics. So that's always the biggest problem is fundraising. But then they want help with branding and awareness and getting the message out. And that's what we help them with, getting the message out through multimedia, through texting, through digital, through direct mail, social media, all those different channels.
So those are services you offer, and you just named potentially, like you said, between multimedia, getting social media, it's all expense, right? There's nothing free in the point in the way of getting the word out. I am Jeff Rabinowitz. I'm running for X office. And getting with Doug Kaplan, what do you tell them when they first sit down at your office? How does the meetings go?
Well, I try to understand their background, why they're running for office, what office they're running for. If I think it's too high up, I always suggest lower office. And then we talk about how they'll fundraise, how they have to start out with their friends and family, which is always the hardest thing to do to ask your family for money. Um, and building connections in the community, which could take years, going to Chamber of Commerce events, building networks through your church, um, networks through business associations, unions. I mean, it's a whole, I mean, it's building a business within a year. That's in essence what a campaign is. So it's not an easy endeavor. It's not for everybody, and it takes a lot of tenacity.
So, and ultimately, like you said, it's like building a business in a year, which is really so it's like you're not going to be able to build that business in the first year. So is it worth explaining to a new candidate that you may fail the first attempt or two? Because it's like you said, you've got a lot to do and you've only got a year and a half to do it if you're new in the business. Is it possible to really prevail in your first bid for office?
Yeah, I've seen it done. On the other hand, I just had a candidate win by 21 points, and she lost her first two elections. So sometimes losing election is not a bad thing because you build connections in the community, you learn a lot about campaigning, and then the next time you run, you already have a lot of pieces, the pieces already in motion, so it's much easier.
So if you talk to a new candidate, okay, just say I'm okay, I am a new candidate, and the Democratic Party is talking to me about running for city council. Okay, and I'm telling them, when I'm looking at the overall picture, it's just like you said, one is money, two is time, three is building connections, which takes money and time. I also have a full-time job. Is it realistic to believe that anything other than a career politician is going to prevail in this environment today?
Yeah, and especially for like city council. I mean, city council is really set up for the average guy, a real estate agent, lawyer, banker, small business owner, um, teacher, school board, county commissioner. Those types of races are built for the average person. When you start talking about Congress and U.S. Senate, then you're talking career politicians.
So ultimately, that's the way it goes. Just like in business, you got to start somewhere. You got to start as a busboy in a restaurant to become the general manager, or you may not. I mean, no one. I mean, somewhere along the line, you may start somewhere low end and climb the ladder through. But it's the same as politics, right? Because people are always telling me, why is it always old people that are running for president? This current president's going on 80. Last president was going on 80. I think Barack Obama was one of the youngest presidents, and he wasn't really a young man. You're never. Are we ever going to see a 40-year-old president?
You could, J.D. Vance or Gavin Newsom are both very young. So you could see it next time.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's true. That's an interesting point of view because I never thought about that. And they are the two, I guess you would say, and I guess Andrea Ocasio-Cortez is throwing her hat in the ring here and there
Yeah.
inadvertently. So I guess you would, yeah, I guess you could. So is that a sign of the times? Are we looking for something new? Is Donald Trump that something new? Is it even though there's a feeling of we don't like what he's doing, do we like the fact that he's doing something no one else did?
Yeah, he's keeping his promises. He's closed the border. He's lowered immigration. That's a lot of people wanted that. And, it's we're still seeing on the tariffs, and some of the other things. So it's an interesting experiment.
And it is an experiment, right, Doug? Would you say that this whole Donald Trump presidency, the second term especially, is more even, I, when in his first administration, I didn't see him do a lot, and I think he just rode on the coattails of whatever happened in the past, and that seemed to be what his success story was in the first term. But in this term, he's really doing a lot. I don't know that he's doing it, but his staff and him are really initiating a lot of the heavy lifting that people only dreamed about until now. And so, is that a sign of the times? Are we going to see more aggressive politicians in the future?
I think you will. I think with Supreme Court decisions that have come out, you have a much stronger executive now. And I think you'll see a much stronger executive and a much weaker Congress, for a long time until it changes.
So, do you think when you say a stronger, there is a stronger executive? I thought that was all spelled out in one ruling where Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the president needs to be aggressive. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing now in his actions. He needs to be bold in his actions. So that was a ruling. And so, yes, it empowered the president a lot more than it was clarity on the subject of presidential power with that one ruling. Then comes the idea, and I've used the term crash dummy. Was Donald Trump the crash dummy? Are Democrats saying we hate what he's doing, but we can't wait to the time when they get the keys to the car, when they get the keys to the family car, because now they're going to be the new invigorated executive office.
I think so. I mean, it's hard for them to look in the future right now. For a Democrat, it looks bleak, but power does, the pendulum always swings in this country. It never stays the same. Every 4, 8, 12 years, the pendulum is going to swing. Um, Trump is a unique figure. We might never see anyone like him again. But I think, ever since the nuclear weapons came aboard in the 40s, you saw the power of the executive really increase. And ever since then, the power of the president has been much stronger and the power of Congress is weakened for whatever reason.
And that probably will make the argument for more when you think of, and I'm going to ask the question, not pose the statement. When you think of the idea, like you just said, that the executive power has really been clarified under this president, is that going to suddenly increase the amount of billionaires running for president? Is that now we're looking at a case in point where you, like you said, the two premier candidates is Governor Gavin Newsom and Vice President J.D. Vance. Do you see another um out of nowhere? Donald Trump was basically an out of nowhere kind of candidate. Do you see that happening more? I know Bloomberg tried it, but it really didn't go well for him. I don't think he was the guy for the job. But are we going to just see more and more activist billionaires run for president?
I think they might try. I think people will look at them more with a lens. I think Trump is just special. He has just special talents. For instance, when he was asked to show his IRS returns, he never did. He said, I'm under audit, all those things. I just don't think a guy like Elon Musk, who's not eligible to run, he's from South Africa, could get away with that. So I don't think your typical billionaire, I think they would just be under so much more scrutiny. I think Trump was famous without being a billionaire. He was, he's been on the scene since the 80s. He's had a TV show. He had airlines. He had, women. He had the all the casinos. So he was a celebrity before a billionaire, and I think that's the key thing where it all molded together.
It all came together, right? Donald Trump was a marketer, a billionaire, a marketer, a relentless salesman. He persevered through it all. He was allegedly going to go broke, and he came out of the broke and got bigger. And there was a sense of this is. I always thought that the Donald Trump fascination was the sense that he is the guy that's going to teach all American, us, the Americans, how to level up. When you look at Americans today, young people are more and more saying, I'll never own a home. Young people are more and more starting to lose interest in college because they're starting to feel like they're getting duped in these college scenarios where they're going to school and they're not getting what they bargained for, and they owe a lot of money and they've worked hard and they're not able to get a great paying job afterwards. But Donald Trump, when they look at Donald Trump, they look at the success story, like you said, the gold planes, the gold faucets, and the gold everything, and this luxury life. And they're like, if anybody's going to make America and give us the opportunity to level up, it's got to be a guy like him. Is that what people are really looking at now?
I think so. They see him as an American success story.
Right. And so then comes the other question, and I guess it's the elephant in the room, that anything the Democrats try to do to make the point that he shouldn't be the guy you believe in doesn't seem to work. So no matter what it is, the Epstein files, the revelations, the Democrats are like, this is the nail in the coffin. And I don't see that. His adamant support is still his adamant support.
Absolutely. The best thing that could have ever happened to the Democrats is if he would have won in the COVID year in 2020. But I think you'll see some changes happening just simply because I think President Trump knows he's got 2 full years, and then lame duck happens, and there's another presidential election that's going to happen after the midterms, and you're going to have all these candidates like Ted Cruz, J.D. Vance on the right, maybe Rubio. These guys are all going to start running against each other. So a lot of the attention is going to be focused on them as well, trying to win that primary.
but but under that, taking that into consideration, now when you say change, you use the word change, is anything going to change? That's my biggest interest. That's why I do the podcast. So the biggest thing that interests me is, what is the candidate's approach going to change? You've got red versus blue, right? So you've got this idea that the Democrats are going to provide everything for the poor. You've got this notion that the Republicans are going to make everybody rich. But neither one is happening. The Democrats have never delivered much. They're really not very good at the game of politics. Republicans are better at messaging and better at gaining ground on voters, but still don't ever deliver really. But is there going to be a time where we get candidates to come up with new ideas? Like, one of my biggest things is education. Like, I try to explain to people, the only way you really can succeed in life is not going to college, but understanding life, learning life skills, learning how to invest. learning how to start your own business and stick it out like you've done. You've been in business for years and you've had great success. But kids are going to college thinking they're going to get some great job in corporate America, and generally speaking, the great jobs in corporate America are reserved for the very well connected. So
Yeah,
is there a candidate that's going to suddenly change the mindset? Don't depend on me for your next snap check. Don't depend on me for the next $1 trillion tax cut that's going to embolden rich people to pay you more. Depend on yourself, and we're going to teach you how to do it.
I think so. I think there could be a younger candidate that could excite people, that could come up in the wings, or it could be the same amount of, it could be the same politics. I mean, the Reagan Revolution lasted for 25 years, even when Bill Clinton was president. They were still governing on balanced budgets and stuff like that. So will the Trump era go on? Even with if there's a Democratic president, you just have to wait and see how long it lasts for.
Well, that's my hope is really. I know it sounds crazy, especially coming from me, but when you say, well, the Trump era, I would like to see another 4 years, obviously another president with an aggressive approach. I compare him to the Reggie Jackson of baseball. He hit more strikeouts than anyone else, but he also hit more home runs than anybody else. I would like to see a Democrat come in. I've suggested to candidates, I don't know if you know, John Morgan announced he's starting a new party, the Capitalist Party.
While
I
ago,
said,
little
huh?
while, a little while ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I found that very interesting. But frankly, all it is at this point is a name. Like, what is the capitalist program? So then I go on to a tangent. Robert Reich talks about how Jeff Bezos got a $250,000 loan from his mom to start his business. And I'm like, you know what? I would like to see kids rather than borrowing money to go to college, I would like to see them have the ability to take that same college loan and borrow it to start a small business. I would love to see young people starting small businesses so you won't only see one Amazon. You would see a variety of online markets to shop from young people and really empower young people to enjoy the capitalist movement, to enjoy the capitalist opportunities. And I just want some candidate to present that rather than say, I'm going to forgive your student loans or I'm going to give you more for student loans. I mean, I just want
Right.
to see that new aggressive approach that we see in Donald Trump that I don't particularly care for, but it is an aggressive approach.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
I mean, it's just even on foreign policy, I don't always it's an aggressive approach. I don't think we should be bombing boats and coming from Venezuela, but we've talked about taking a more aggressive approach against drug deals. I've always said we've got a problem in America where there's a demand, there's a supply. So let's have an aggressive approach about the demand for the American drug use. Let's have an aggressive approach to mitigate that. In America, we're in a life skills crisis and a mental health crisis. Let's have an aggressive approach about somehow improving that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I mean, we're the ones buying the drugs from them. I mean, the cartels would go away in 2 seconds if we stop buying the drugs, but there'll
Well,
always be opiate users and, methamphetamine users and all that. So, well, all we can do is provide harm reduction, risk reduction, and try to, help people rehab and all that.
But that's my point is if we get to them before they go to rehab, I've talked about, and again, it's just this aggressive approach. It's just this new approach. Who knows what works? Who knows what doesn't work? But young people are in the foster care system. They time out at 18. They're thrown to this crazy world with a small check every month. The one thing they come to realize is they've got two hopes. They can barter their bodies, and that's the one advantage they have over their older competition, or they can get into crime and just survive that way. What about an aggressive approach to taking these kids from foster care and getting them into life skill homes and colleges till they're 24 and teaching them all about life and how to succeed? And it would be an aggressive, expensive approach. But what about a Democrat coming out and suggesting something like that?
Yeah, the reason they don't do it is because the average voter is so old, is over 65 in a primary. So it's catered, both parties are catering to older voters.
Right. So is that going to ever change, Doug? You're in the business of connecting
No,
with voters.
not in the near future.
It's, but do you see the energy coming from young people now?
I see energy and I see a much more of an understanding for sure.
Yeah, and so is that going to have some momentum? Is that going to give us
I
some
think it could, and I think it will change a little bit.
and then
Um, but
ultimately will
they still got to vote. And these off-year elections, and and the presidential elections, they got to vote next time when Trump's not on the ballot. So that's the key.
So do you see the next election being the 75 million number that we've been seeing in the last couple of elections when Trump is no longer in the picture? Or do you see that really dwindling when there's no more the elephant in the room?
It's hard. It's just hard to know. It depends on who the candidates are, but I think so. I think we'll be in the 70s.
In the 70s, you think so? So
Yeah,
there'll still be that vigorous momentum basically.
yeah.
So So now we get into the situation where I always say, and I got to ask you because I always feel like, and often in politics, it's not a candidate that wins; it's basically a candidate that loses. Are we ever going to get to the point again where we really love a candidate?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, the country is so partisan, 50-50. It's hard to ever see like a JFK come in. Not that he was loved by everybody, but he had a 65% job approval at a point, and it's hard to see that ever coming back in the near future, unless there's an event like a 9/11 to bring the country together.
And
There's,
then,
and yeah,
so
Bush had the opportunity and he squandered it. When the country was really together, he had a 90% approval, and he squandered the opportunity.
that was
When
W, right? George
so
Walker Bush.
they
Yeah,
both had 90% approvals, and they both squandered it over Iraq. But the father's was a little bit different. He had no choice but to raise taxes. The son went to war, necessarily in Iraq, and
the
he's done.
idea of going to war unnecessarily. Let's get right into that now. So we've got you, Doug Kaplan, who talks to people about raising money and gets people into understanding that politics takes money. Now you've got candidates, right? Now you've got elected politicians that know to stay in office, they got to fulfill their big donors' needs, right? So we as America have been in the business of war for 50 years. Every year it's something new. Every year, like you said, George Bush didn't really have to go back to war with Iraq. It really didn't accomplish anything, but so he did. He did. I don't think it really accomplished anything when we bombed Iran recently. They're saying right now that they've already dug out the third tunnel, and Iran's probably going to start producing bomb grade plutonium and uranium again. Is there ever going to be a point in America, a Jimmy Carter, for example, that says war is bad and we're going to get out of the business of war?
Well, he funded Osama bin Laden, and started Al Qaeda for the against the Russians. So it's complicated because we are the world superpower, and there's a lot of advantages that come with that, but there's also a responsibility.
A lot of responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So you have to make those decisions because I always talk about when I talk about war in particular, I talk about there's a book by General Wesley. This is it right here. Actually, War is a Racket by General Smedley Butler, and it's a small book, and he talks about war as a racket. It's a business, and we make money on war, and billionaires and people we have ever we billionaires become even richer on war.
Sure.
There is a momentum, a sort of understanding, an inadvertent understanding. When we look at the war in Ukraine, we see these very inexpensive drones doing big jobs, taking care of business in a big way. And I feel like there is an understanding that maybe we could really spend less on our military hardware, go into this lesser expensive equipment. But then it comes to mind that if certain politicians were to go that route, a lot of the military contractors in their districts would lose business and they would lose those donors. So is there any way to get that point across that we need to look at a more efficient way of 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 equipping our military because
Sure. I mean, you could look at what war in the 21st century is going to be. It's a volunteer army, but you're right, it is complicated. Your military bases closing, the fight over that, and military contractors and all that. It's a huge business within itself.
And it's just, is there ever going to be a time where candidates talk about it? I'm going to be the guy that says we need to call it Doge, call it Department of Government, go back to a sense of efficiency, a sense of government governing efficiency. Not necessarily the way they did it the first time, but talk about reinventing government, how we do business in a big way, how we invest in things like keeping kids off of drugs. Will that pay a huge dividend, bigger, a return on investment, bigger than some of the things we are investing in?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's we have other things to do militarily. We got to get to the moon, compete with China, and make sure they don't pass us, and space and all those things. All those things are connected to the military. And
And
world's a complicated place.
and and actually space travel has gone to the private sector, which is something Bill Clinton and Al Gore actually initiated. Really, they
Sure.
really so so we've seen so if coming from your vantage point, when you see new candidates, do you ever discuss with them what they're thinking, what they're planning to run on?
Oh yeah, and why they're running, what their history is, who they are, of course.
And are you seeing any new exciting innovative approaches, or are you
Yeah,
seeing?
I always, on a local level, you always see great people, teachers, businessmen, doctors, lawyers, real estate agents that really want to make a difference.
And so the Democrats now they have a policy, a candidate in every race, right? So there was a logic, there was a number. When President Obama was president for 8 years, he was a popular president, but across the country, locally, Democrats lost over 1,200 seats in local government during that
Yeah.
8 year tenure. So now there's a logic within the Democratic Party to have a candidate in every race. So that from your business standpoint, are you seeing an influx of people coming to you, a bigger volume of people coming to you?
Yeah, all types of people. You believe me, you'd be surprised at having people come to me. They want to run for president. Um, but yeah, a lot of people want to run for office, and I try to talk them down and talk to them about local office and all that. But
So when are you in connection? Do you coordinate with either party?
we do more with the Republican Party, but we do work in some nonpartisan races, which end up with Democrats.
So okay, say I've been a lifelong
In the
Democrat.
city of Orlando race, which is Democrats.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
Commissioner Rose, she won by 22.
right, yeah, yeah. So you do work with some Democrats,
Yeah,
but
some.
mostly. Go ahead.
It's just a Republican state. So
That's where the volume is, right? It's a
yeah.
conservative state. So if you have an interesting Democrat with an innovative mind, do you try to sway him to work with the Republicans, or do you?
No, 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 no.
No.
No, I work with both. I'm nonpartisan. More of my clients are Republicans, though. I'm a independent Republican, I guess.
Well, I always say I'm center right. People
Yeah,
call
me
me an
too.
adamant liberal. I'm not. I like conservative policies in a lot of ways. Some things I don't like, and that. So I guess that makes me an independent. But I feel like under in today's time, you're either left or right. You're either red or blue, and that's the kind of thing where I'm trying to change this on my podcast. Where let's just get to solutions, it's not necessarily party
Yeah, I think
line.
many Americans are in the middle, like us. You like some things, you don't like other things. There's a million things that we can meet on in the middle.
Right. And I've always said I think the Affordable Care Act worked. I used to say I don't think it should be called affordable. I always used to say I think it should be called the Available Care Act, but it
Yeah,
did make care available to everybody.
absolutely. And pre-existing
And
conditions and all that went away.
right, the pre-existing conditions went away. Your pricing was based on age and gender, which meant just that. You're just going to pay. No, you're not going to. They're not going to preclude a cancerous diagnosis, and you're not going to pay $1,000 more a month because there was a cancerous diagnosis.
Right.
So I thought that worked. So will there ever be an agreement that let's just build on that rather than
I think
dismantle
I
it?
think we'll get a health care plan. I think where it goes is more catastrophic for younger people, but we'll see. Healthcare is another third rail of politics. People don't want to talk about it.
But they are talking about it, right?
Right now they are, yes, because the subsidies and Obamacare are expiring.
So when that comes up in your office, what do you tell a candidate? Drop the subject for the
No,
moment or
no,
just
no. I mean, talk about it. I mean, that's a great issue for Democrats because a lot of people are worried about the health care. The bills are going up for everybody. And a lot of people, Democrats are seen as the party that can help on health care. So that's a strong issue for Democrats.
that is their one big ticket item, right?
Yeah.
But when you think of who's got more big ticket items, it's Republicans, right?
Yeah, but they're solving a lot of them, whether it's immigration or taxes and all that. But Democrats more on Social Security and some of the other issues are seen more favorable, but it always changes. The pendulum always swings.
Yeah. So how do you see this next midterm? Do you see it going in either direction?
It depends where the economy is in April or May and how the tariffs work. If the economy improves and cost of living goes down, then I think the Republicans will do well. If it doesn't, then the Democrats will win big.
Okay, so we still got a little while to tell, right, Doug?
Yeah.
And then if the Democrats win big, does that dismantle the whole Trump agenda?
No, because he accomplished so much in 2 years. I don't think it does.
No, he still has some momentum still.
Yes.
Wow, okay, that's a good way to look at it. I mean, I hope Democrats prevail in the midterms, but like I said, I'm not. I do stay bipartisan. I do stay open-minded, but I am a little concerned about some of the things Donald Trump has done a lot. The How is the $4 trillion, the big beautiful bill perceived? Do you hear that from candidates at all? Do they think that was the right direction for America?
That's something a lot of people talk about right now.
No,
No.
they're done with that, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of past. Yeah. So what do you see what do you when in your business and you're working with Republicans, right? What are they bringing up as their main agenda?
Immigration, military, cost of living. Cost of living is the biggest issue right now.
And are there some solutions out there?
Well, Trump just dropped tariffs on a bunch of different products from beef to coffee, chicken, I mean, all different types of products. We'll see if that lowers the prices.
Okay, so that's done now. He's
Insurance, another big issue.
What's that?
Insurance, car
Insurance is a big
insurance,
issue.
health
Yeah.
insurance,
Has he
homeowner
done?
insurance,
Is there
as you
any initiative
know.
on that? Because my homeowner's insurance just
That's a
skyrocketed.
state issue, but they did do some work a couple of years ago. We got to see if how it works.
That was 3 years ago, right?
Yeah,
That was
special session.
right. That was a special session agreement. But I did hear about it, and I haven't heard. I guess I could say the results haven't been positive yet because my rates keep going up. But
And mine too. It seems to have stalled out. It's not going up significantly, but it's not going down either.
right. So I guess that's a plus that we're not seeing it.
And there haven't been any big storms. So
Well, if there's, I don't know how that policy would work. If the big storms came through, are they able to just change the policies or?
yeah, I think so.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we should definitely do this again though.
Yeah, Doug, please, let's do this again. I really appreciate
Let's
you
do this
spending.
again closer to the midterms.
Absolutely. I'll stay in touch. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank
Bye-bye.
God bless. Thank you.